another week of the Beer, Meat, and Cheese podcast. Johnny Samp and Carter Decker here for you today, and we've got a great show in the making. Right, Carter? I mean, it's been a bye week for us, which is all good and fun and games, but we also got a loss in the division, which is great for us, and got a couple close contests where we have to discuss about it a little bit, just to see what's happening there. But you can follow us here on YouTube or on Spotify as well. We are posting on both those websites and platforms, so you can listen to us to anywhere you go, whether it's before the game or in your car with your family. We are the Beer, Meat, and Cheese podcast, everything you need before your tailgate experience. And let's get into it, Carter. So we had the bye week, but it's Bears week this week, big fella, and we've got a lot to talk about and a lot to look forward to, as all 53 guys on the roster were playing this week, or were actually practicing today. And that's really a nice thing to have, because when you finally get all those players, out there on the field and playing good football, that really makes a huge difference for us.
Absolutely. I'm super excited. Like you said, all 53 men are out on the field practicing, participating. Doesn't mean that everyone's going to play, but it's a great sign and a great step forward into the future. Very excited about this week. Like you said, it's Bears week, finally.
It's the
Been waiting
Bears.
for it. We've definitely been tuning ourselves up for this game, and there's a lot to go through, so I'm excited.
So one thing I want to mention is, when I mean the 53 roster, it means Jordan Love was practicing today, Evan Williams, Jair, and Josh Myers, a couple of the notables out in the last contest. So it is very good to see that all of them are coming back into healthy form. It's, no long-term, knock on wood, no long-term injuries. They were just short-term, mostly like ankle sprains or something like that. Things that just had to be worked out. But it would be nice to see a full Packers roster here as we move into the Bears heading to Chicago, actually, for that Soldier Field game coming up this weekend, because it is Bears week. And some things I know we are looking for the Packers to look or work on was including like a healthy roster we talked about last week. We want to see those guys get healthy, get working, and get going. We also are hoping to see the Packers working on some of those simple mistakes in the bye week. They had quite a few in the first half of the season, and I think it's something that they can easily fix. Again, we talked about just the pre-snap stuff and the jumping of the line, that sort of thing. A couple other things was making sure Love is on schedule with his receivers, and maybe stop throwing off the back foot a little bit. I mean, I gotta admit, I hate when he does that. I know he thinks it looks like good, but that kind of has led to turnovers, I would say. Just making better decisions is something we want to see that they worked on all week. And finally, the defense, making sure they're all solidified up on the backside there, and it should help with a healthier roster. But what did you think in the Packers bye week? What were you hoping they were working on, and what sort of things are you hoping to see come Sunday?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, actually a few things. Like you said, just overall health of the team. It's good to see everyone back out there on the field. It's good to see that we have a good direction going. Jordan Love, like I said, I wanted him to be cleaned up coming into this week, especially because the Bears are not on a great stint right now in terms of wins and losses. However, every time we go to Soldier Field and every time they come to Lambeau Field, it's a knockdown, drag-out fight. So I think we really got to strap it up, make sure our belts are on tight, and we got to go out there and really play hard. Um, Other than that, I think the penalties are really the biggest part. It's just the simplistic penalties that we're getting. Like you said, we're jumping off sides when we're just trying to go on two, or we're, getting small holding calls here and there when we break it for 15 yards. It's getting annoying and it's getting very tedious. It's hard to maintain those drives when we get those drive killers, whether they're at the start or in the middle of the drive. It doesn't matter when they are; it matters that they happen. So I'd really like to see us clean it up on that end, which is mostly mental, not so much physical. It's not like we needed to go out there and get the reps or nothing like that. More so just making sure that we're locked in for this game. And honestly, there's no better team to face to get locked in against. We know this is going to be a good game, regardless of their standings in the NFC. So we got to be prepared for it. So I'm excited. I think we took plenty of time this bye week, not only for social aspects. If you go all over social media, I know Jordan Love was out watching the Lakers game. So I'm excited to see what they did off the field as well as practicing during the week. So the only time will tell. But I think we had a good time just to rest, good mid-season break, and I think we're going to come back from this stronger.
Indeed, and I can't agree more. I think it's kind of a good thing that we got that finally got that break, taking the players' attention off the game maybe a little bit just to relax, clear their minds a little bit. You talked about Jordan at the Lakers game, something he was posted on social media about, which is great, and some other things that I think moving forward that this team can look to is we were winning ball games before with a really kind of felt like we were losing, but we were actually winning, and like you're kind of holding on, that sort of thing. And I remember us talking about last week. We had talked about making this a statement game. Now, what, in your opinion, would make this a statement game for the Packers? Like, what has to happen for the Packers for it to be a statement game in your eyes?
Number one, we're like you said, we're going into their place, so a win doesn't matter whether it's a small win or a big win. It's gonna feel like a statement win. However, I think one of the biggest keys that we need to have is no turnovers. We cannot give the Chicago Bears an inch, because again, when they play us, an inch means that they're going to take it a mile. So we need to make sure that we lock it in. No turnovers, whether that's fumbles or Jordan throwing the ball, like I said, off his back foot. We need to make smart decisions on that side, and then on the defensive side of the game, we need to keep everything in front of us. They do have some players that get downfield. DJ Moore can get downfield. DeAndre Swift's got some shifty abilities, but if we can keep them in front of us and not let them make those big plays, it's only a matter of time before Caleb throws a pick or makes a bad decision, throws it in the ground, and we get a sack. So we just need to be patient on defense. We need to make sure that we're not, um, going too hard too early. I guess is probably the best way to put it. They're going to use that against us. Let's be honest. The Chicago Bears are going to use our momentum against us. So we need to make sure that we keep it even keeled. I don't mind Josh starting some fights. I don't mind, some scrappiness here and there. But we need to keep them in front of us. As soon as we start getting a little cocky or we get a little, too full of ourselves, and we try to come down and stop a run, and he's going to throw it over our heads. So small things. Keep them in front of us on defense and on offense. No mistakes. Let's keep all the mistakes to a minimum. One or two penalties isn't bad. No interceptions, no fumbles, no turnovers, and we're going to come out with a good statement win.
Yeah, and I totally agree with everything you said there. One thing I would add is I would like to see, even though you said no turnovers, I want to see Jordan Love attack. I don't want him to feel like he's on it, his back's against the wall. I want him to feel like he's leading the charge. I think the Bears have a very good secondary. We've talked about it before. But I also think they're a little bit overrated. And I think Jordan Love could expose that with Jalen Johnson on the other side of the ball against him. I think he's got the receiving core to do it. And I think this would be a great game to kind of pick that up, because if I see him picking apart that defense, kind of like a Tom Brady, back in the day where he would just sit in the pocket. It might not be big passes, but gain of 5, just keep moving those chains. Keep moving it downfield. Keep walking. Keep that forward progress going. If I can see a couple drives with that, especially against that secondary, even if it's not, again, deep passes where Jalen Johnson's going to be one-on-one, possibly two-on-one with one of our receivers, and we're kind of doing a sky ball and, say Romeo Doubs jumps up and gets a lucky catch. I don't necessarily feel like that, but I feel like if we can get, Kraft in the flat for 4 yards and then keep moving forward with, Jacobs out of the backfield, runs a post or a slant or something, and then we keep moving that chain forward for another 5 yards and get that first down, and then on the second set of 10 yards, we see Wicks or Reed or somebody in that mix. Just keep mixing that ball up, finding different guys, finding those open pockets. And I think it would be a huge boost to his confidence, especially if he can keep it clean with no turnovers, that sort of thing. And I think it would really just boost the team's morale if we get a good marching drive where the chains are always leaning. The guys that are doing the chain crew are always ready to move forward with the first down. That's always a nice thing to see, and I think it would be really good to see it against the Bears and in Soldier Field, given how much hype was around them in the beginning of the season and how they've kind of, as you mentioned, kind of shut up here in the past few weeks. If I'm putting it lightly, they haven't been playing real well, and right now, they just fired their OC, and I believe a veteran lineman they cut him, and he's still like 3 years, $60 million left on his contract, which is crazy, I think. But they're changing things up, and I think it was probably an attitude issue. with Caleb Williams, and they made. I don't know if you saw that earlier today because I thought, oh my gosh, they're really making moves now. Right before they play the big brother from the north, but it's something that I think the Bears are really in a panic here, and I think Jordan Love can take advantage of that. I don't think there's anybody comfortable that's wearing the navy or dark blue. I guess I don't wouldn't even be really navy and orange is real comfortable in their seats right now. I know a lot of Bears fans are questioning whether Williams is the starter or if they should put a veteran in for a few weeks just so he gets some rest, that sort of thing. But I think there's a lot of momentum here for the Packers coming in off the bye week, coming in with a healthy roster. Just not having a game last week was probably the best thing for them, just so they don't have anything they have to live off of. They can start out fresh, essentially. Yes, they did lose to the Lions before the bye week, but did they really lose? They kind of beat themselves up. I mean, I guess they did lose. Lions are a good team, but this is a game where they can make a huge difference in the contest by just controlling what they can do. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of distractions on the Bears side of things. Like you said, moving all these players, moving and shifting coaches. It's never easy. I mean, take the Jets for example. Look at them. They thought that was going to be their big change, switching out head coach and who's calling the plays and whatnot. And it hasn't made a difference. As a matter of fact, they actually look worse than they did prior. So it seems that it's going to be a huge distraction. And like you said, we need to take advantage of it. As much as I hate to beat on someone who's already down, it's the Bears. So we need to really put together a good win. And like you said, nickeling and diming them down the field would honestly probably hurt way more than just throwing up a few big bombs. Christian Watson or Dobbs or Reed or something like that. If we can nickel and dime them for like 4 or 5 drives and make scores out of those, it's going to be a huge morale hit, um, as opposed to throwing those big shots up. So I'm excited. I think that the moves that the Bears are making, it's just not going to end up great. I don't think that's really the problem was the play calling. I definitely think it contributed, but it felt like there's a deeper issue in
They're
that locker
missing the
room
big
than just
problem.
the coach. Right. It seems like they're just trying to put a band-aid on a cut that's 18 inches long. So it's like, are you really doing a whole lot, or are you just trying to throw something at it to say you're fixing it? So it seems like this offseason is probably going to be an overhaul for them, especially with their record keeps going south and doesn't go north anymore. But this is a great time to take advantage of it. I mean, they're a little discombobulated on their side. They got some things in the locker room going on that are distracting. It's time to go out there and take advantage, get everyone the ball, make sure that we're running it, make sure we're throwing it, and just put together a great game all around.
And something I want to uh, kind of relate it to. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie with Will Ferrell and Kevin Hart. He's got to be a convict. Get Hard, I believe the movie's called.
There you go.
And they
Yep.
have the whiteboard, and they have all the other people's names, and then right in the middle they have the main guy's name. I think Eberflus is that guy, the main guy, right in the middle of the center, and
Yep.
he's got to be their big problem. I don't know how the organization hasn't figured that out. Obviously, they always seem to make things more complicated than it really has to be. Uh, but I guess that's why we love them here in the north because they just can't figure things out. In the Bears, I mean, you almost gotta like the fans are calling for Eberflus to get fired, but it's like the organization is just holding on to something like he's got some leverage on them, and they can't fire him at all. It's just a really weird situation. But let's move to talk about the Bears and how they fared last week against the Patriots. They did lose 19-3, and Williams did not look good again in this contest. He didn't look happy. 16 to 30, 120 yards. Drake May on the other side, 15 for 25, 184 yards, 1 TD, 1 interception. Swift on the ground, 16 carries, 59 yards. And Stevenson, 20 carries, 74 yards for the Patriots. Allen, 5 catches, 44 yards. Hooper, 3 catches, 64 yards. And, what are your thoughts on this game? They had a game where I think they really could have beat the Patriots, and yet they still, just keep doing the Bears kind of thing.
Seems like they went into this game, and I'll be honest. I think we had talked about it last week. I thought the Bears were going to win this game against the Patriots. It really didn't seem like they had. I mean, it's the Bears, so they're not great. But going into this, it seemed like they were better than the Patriots. And then when they got out there, they just completely wet the bed. They didn't put up really any numbers. Caleb Williams got hit a massive amount of times. He got sacked many times. And for him, it's just almost impossible. I mean, it's hard to even blame Caleb Williams at this point when his line can't even protect him for more than 2 seconds to get the ball out. And of course, they're not running those quick plays where they're trying to get the ball out that fast. And if they do, the defense is playing up and tight. So it seems like at every corner they're just getting defended correctly. Seems like teams are doing a good job of figuring out what to do against them. And on the opposite side of that, it seems like the Bears are doing a poor job of trying to figure out how they can move the ball a bit better. It seemed like even DeAndre Swift got stuffed. He only had 60 yards on 16 carries. That's not like him over the last few games. Well,
I was going
barring
to
the
say
first,
he's
I
been
think,
kind of
3 games.
cheeks.
Yeah, first 3 games he was really bad. Then he had a good go, and now it's kind of rescinding again. So it's this up and down with the Bears organization that just it's not manageable. They have these nice highs where they think, "Oh my gosh, we got this," and they got 100 yards, on the ground for a player, 100 yards in the air, and they're like, "Okay, we're putting together. This is good." And then the next game they just lose and do the opposite. They can't defend, they can't run, they can't pass. So this up and down really needs to stop for them. I'm as a Packer fan, no, keep going up and down.
Yeah,
It
keep
makes no
keep it
difference
keep
to
it
me.
rolling.
But from a football perspective, they really need to get that under control, and that really seems to be the major issue on their end. They've got no consistency, um, and it seems like that locker room's just torn apart. I've seen a lot of rumors running around on Twitter, saying that their locker room is beefing against the head coach. Some of them are calling for Caleb Williams to get benched. So it seems interesting that the changes that they made didn't really reflect what the rumors have been sounding like, or at least what the players and some of the coaches were thinking as well as the fans. So I'm interested to see how they come out next week. They really got to have a win. I mean, at this point, they got to start winning out the rest of the season if they want even a chance. So this is going to be a really big game for them. They're going to have a lot of pressure on them. I don't know if Caleb Williams is really going to be ready to handle it. I don't know if that defensive line is really going to be able to handle it against our Packers line. Excuse me, their offensive line against our defensive line is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, and let's remember Caleb Williams was the guy at the bar or whatever with Romo Dunze saying the Packers suck and that sort of thing. Um, but he also has tweets from 2017 saying he loves the Packers and everything they do. So it's kind of a weird relationship with him. Here's a really, I thought, of intriguing question. If you're Eberflus at this point, what move are you making to get that locker room back together? Or are you making a move? Are you going to keep Caleb Williams as starter, or are you going to try to work with maybe a more veteran presence in the backup? And how do you get the other veterans on the team to jump back on board with the project that you're working on as the 2024 Bears team? So what would you do?
If I was him, I would probably try to invent a time machine and go back to the start of the season and not play Caleb Williams and try and just put another quarterback out there. But, that doesn't exist. So what does he do from right here, right now? He can't bench his quarterback. He doesn't really have someone to take over that spot. And as of right now, the free market or the market's pretty much closed to getting another quarterback. So that would be a very, very hard thing for him to do. And it would kind of just be putting him in the losing seat. I don't see many quarterbacks around the league that aren't playing or are able to go over to the Bears are really going to make that big of a difference. So can't really do anything at that point. Their offensive line, like you said, they cut somebody. They really need to get replacements. I think that's where he needs to start. He's got the wide receiver. He's got the running back. He's got a quarterback who can at least throw the ball downfield. He's got to really shore up that line. Like I had mentioned prior, he got sacked way too many times. He's got to go out there and he's got to get some big boys that are going to get in the way and make sure that they can't get to Caleb Williams. Until that happens, their offense isn't really going to find that momentum or that consistency that I'm talking about that they really, really need. So if I was him, I'd start with the offensive line. On the defensive side, wouldn't really change much. My defensive coordinator is doing okay. My defense is doing okay. It's not doing great, but hard to really do that when let's look at the Patriots game itself. They went punt. The Bears offense went punt, 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 field goal, punt, 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 turnover, turnover. So it's really, really hard for any defense to get a good grip and keep a team under your score if all you're doing is coming right back out there after 3 to 10 plays or 3 to 9 plays that they're getting walked out on. So not sure the defense is the problem. Going to stick it on the offensive line. What do you think?
Just want to mention another Caleb Williams quote. Not going to have to punt much. That was a lie. But if I'm Eberflus, if my team really thinks that Ty Baggin, isn't that who the backup is down there in Chicago, is really going to be the answer. Even just to not even win the season, just to gain confidence back in the locker room, I would put him in. Just because it seems like the old line's kind of giving up on him. They're not helping him up. There's a video actually from this weekend where he gets knocked down and he puts his arm up, expecting O line to kind of help him up. And now I always say, the O line are biggest guys, they should really be the ones getting helped up. But if they're getting up, and it was a defensive player that helps them up, and it kind of looks miserable, man. I mean, it just looks like something's wrong. So if that O line's not feeling it, and they're pulling, a longest yard play where they're just giving up on standing straight up and letting the guys run through,
Right.
I think something's got to change it, on the player side. Maybe even if they're forcing my hand at that situation, because I got to protect the guy. He's the number one draft pick. He's expected to be the best since sliced bread, and he's really hasn't produced because he's got nothing in protecting him in front. And if I can't get the O line unit together, he's never going to get any better. Now, if you can gain confidence with Williams by keeping him in, and gain confidence with that O line as with the Caleb Williams behind them, fine. Then go with the Caleb Williams move. But right now, I'm not real convinced either way that Caleb Williams, he were to bench him or if he were to keep him in, is really gonna sway either way with that team, because it just looks brutal. Like, you have to turn the game to a different channel when you're losing 19-3 to the Patriots, and the Patriots are not like the dynasty Patriots from years ago, and not playing that kind of football.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's kind of sad to see because I mean, even if he does get benched for Tyler, they're I think they're the same draft class, right? Or if not, he was a year prior. So
He played last year, so he was a couple years
yeah,
ago.
okay. So I mean, he's been there for a little bit longer, but he's never really had the opportunity to really play either. So, maybe you save Caleb Williams just a little bit of time. Give him a few weeks to get benched and maybe come back in the rest of the season. But at that point, you're already tanking the season because unfortunately, your backup quarterback doesn't really have any experience. It's not like he's a super veteran quarterback like they had Andy Dalton at one point, who's been to a few places and played quite a few games. They got a quarterback who is not really doesn't have the same experience or more experience than Caleb Williams does. So I don't know if that's even the correct move. Maybe it is for them. Maybe they do make it. I think at this point there's just not a whole lot of answers. Their answers, or excuse me, they need to ask these questions week 2, week 3, and get an answer by week 6. We're rolling into week 11, and the same problems are still happening, still happening. It's almost too late.
It's crazy that's week 11 already. But yeah,
Yeah, it is crazy. I'm kind of sad about it, but now
yeah.
that I said it out loud, it's a little sad. But
I was gonna
it's
say
okay.
it when I heard it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's week 11. We're
Yeah.
cooking by this season. But anyways, Bears, whether you make a change or not, don't know if it's gonna make a difference. My final question here, on the Bears side of things: are the Bears officially melting down? Do you believe? Like, do you think this is they're sounding the war alarms? It's going down. They're getting just decimated, and they're waving the flag.
Let's put it like this: Chicagoans, Chicago Bear fans, are way too proud to ever wave the white flag, which I admire. Hey,
Yeah,
until the
more
ship
power to
sinks,
you.
100%.
You're from
So
Chicago
they
area.
would never. I'm from Illinois, a little farther outside of Chicago, but in my experience, yeah, there's no giving up or saying, yeah, it's over. So I'll give them, I'll give them that. But from the outside looking in, yeah, it definitely looks like this is it. They need to turn it up now, right now, before even the week starts. They need to turn it up now. And if they don't turn it up and start winning the rest of the season, then they're just going to be done. I think if they keep going downwards, it's only going to be bad for everyone on the team because there's going to be so many switches made. By the time next year starts, it's not even going to look like the same team anymore. So, I think from the outside looking in, yes. I think internally, everyone's like, you know what, it's cool. We're going to figure it out. Win a few games. We made a few shifts in the puzzle. maybe we'll start winning games. So I think everyone in their fan base is a little bit more optimistic than someone from outside. But this is going to be the game. If they come in, or if we come into land, or excuse me, ooh,
Soldier
if
Field.
we go down into Soldier Field, there it is. If we go down into Soldier Field and we just whoop them. I mean, that's just going to be, it's just not going to be a good look for them. So if they can stay in this game and maybe lose by a touchdown or 3 points, something like that, feel like the fan base and the team are going to think that they're still in it. But if we go out there and we put up 28 points to their like 7 or 10 points, something like that, yeah, it's not going to be a good day for them.
And that's exactly what I'm hoping for. So now let's do a score prediction here. What's your score prediction for this contest?
Honestly, like I said, 28-10 would be perfect for me. I think that's a great point. That's 4 touchdowns. That's only 1 touchdown for them and a field goal, which I think is completely manageable from our defense. I think we could honestly hold them to less, but I'm going to say we score 28 points, and I'm going to say we hold them down to 10.
I'm gonna say we get 24, they get 3. I'm saying
I
they
like
don't even score. I'm thinking
I like
defense can come revved up. Now that Preston Smith has moved a different direction, Lucas Van Ness going to have a bigger role in that defensive line. On the other side, it's going to be Rashawn Gary. We got Wyatt back. He seems healthy. Kenny Clark's up the middle, too. TJ Slayton, who had a great camp, can be really productive and really hasn't been. Now, in the linebacking core, I think Quay kind of hopefully figures it out a little bit. He's been a little rotten, but you have Cooper as well. He's been really good. And then we've got Wilson back there too. He's been really good as well and kind of an undernamed star. But I think there's a lot of weapons on our defense that can really explode here. And we can have a really good game against the Chicago Bears. What do you think?
I really want to see X get another interception. I'd love to keep that trend going. If we can get him like 15 interceptions on the year, that'd be crazy. Not exactly feasible, but you know what? If we can get him even like 10, if we can get him
Yeah,
10 interceptions, I think that'd be awesome.
just a couple.
Um, yeah, just a few more. Nothing crazy. I mean, I'm not asking for, the biggest Christmas wish in the world, but I'm excited about it. I think our defense is, like I said, we've been good on defense this whole year, but I think our defense is a good image of how we're progressively getting better every single week. Have we had a few down weeks? Sure, what team doesn't?
Oh,
But I
yeah.
think every week we've been getting slowly better and better at a great pace. Whereas on the offensive side, I feel like we have good spurts, but we've had games where we just take 3 or 4 steps back. Whereas I feel like on defense, we've never really taken more than 2 steps back. I feel like we've definitely taken a step back, maybe one or two, but never more than 2 steps back. So I'm really excited about our defense, like you had mentioned. I'm excited for our offense. This is a great opportunity. They're a decent defense, and if our defense can keep it up, we're gonna get the ball a lot. That means probably a lot of running, a lot of small, here and there plays. We don't need to, lob the ball up a ton on them. We got to keep the ball in our hands. And really, time of possession is going to be a huge part of this game. If we can control the ball and keep it in our hands, the less opportunities Caleb Williams is going to have to make a miracle play and chuck it downfield like Washington did on them a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and without a doubt. But let's move on here a little bit and move to our friends over in the west, to the west. West. I don't know. Either way. Depending which way. So I'm facing the east, so it'd be actually back that way. But yeah, to the west, and that's the Vikings. They slipped past the Jaguars, winning 12-7 in a really ugly contest. Once again, everybody seemed to play really down ball this week. We'll go through some stats here real quick. Darnold, 24 for 38, 241 yards, 3 interceptions. Mac Jones, I'm talking about 14 for 22, 111 yards, 2 interceptions. Aaron Jones on the ground, 17 carries, 88 yards. ATN, 11 carries, 44 yards. And Hawkinson, 8 catches, 72 yards. And Ingram, 6 receptions and 40 yards in that game. So a really ugly game. In a game I really wish the Jaguars would have won. They were so close so many times to getting a score, and they just, because, I mean, they didn't have Trevor Lawrence in, and they had, the backup Mac Jones, not necessarily that talented of a player. I know the Patriots drafted him high when he was younger. What was that now, 3-4 years ago?
Yeah.
Somewhere in that ballpark. But just couldn't find a way to get that offense churning and burning. And no real production on the offense. It seemed like Doug Peterson's team scored one because of a turnover that they got close to the goal line and they end up running it in with Mac Jones. But the Vikings do prevail. What's your general thoughts on this one?
Like you said, man, I really wish the Jaguars would have just won that game.
Yeah, there's so
I
many
think
opportunities.
they had quite a few opportunities, but they just keep shooting themselves in the foot. And unfortunately, the Jaguars just it's
Yeah,
not their
Plexico
year.
Burris.
Yeah, so it's not their year, and they unfortunately can't put it together. But throwing three interceptions coming from the Vikings is huge. It was really fun to see that aspect of things because it really kind of made the struggle way more highlighted, I guess. Which I know you want this, but I kind of hope that starts becoming a little bit of the trend and defenses
Oh,
starting to
I
figuring it
think
out.
that's going to be our next question.
So I it was a bad game. Let's just put it that way. And it looks like the team that just made one less mistake ended up winning. It was kind of hard to judge, where they're going to go at from here. But when you think about it from, who they're playing, it's not a great team. And they're only able to put up 12 points and then throw three interceptions. And they were still able to win. So it's like, okay, we came out with a win. We, got by the hair of our chinny chin chin, but they
I like
can't do
that. I
that
like
in a
that.
regular game. No, it seems like it it was a good game to watch as a Packer fan. He's like, wow, this is just back into the dirt, turnover, three and out. Um, but man, they just couldn't. No team could really lock it in. So it was kind of just it was a meh experience. But I think if this has anything to say for the future of the Minnesota Vikings, I think this is a great news for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, and my next question was going to relate to that. Do you think the early season dominance is slipping away?
It really just seems to seem like it, right? I mean,
Yeah, they've been bad the last couple of games.
right. And they've won, they won a couple games. It's not like they've been on a huge losing streak or anything like that. And they're still number two in the division. But yeah, just the last few weeks have been looking real rough compared to their, 4-0 start. Um, so it does seem like the burners are starting to get turned down a little and teams are starting to figure it out. We just need to keep that trend going, to be 100% honest with you. As long as that continues to be their performances, then we're going to have a great rest of the season. But this also could be that little kick-in game where coach goes in there and is like, yo, this is bad. What were we doing? Ripping into people, tearing people a new one. And that might be their turnover because they're like, oh, we've been coasting up until this point. We've been doing good. Now they did really bad. This might just kick on the fire. So me personally, I'm a little nervous.
No.
Losses are a great motivator, but that's what could happen. They could turn it on, and maybe they could turn it up for the rest of the season, or maybe this hits and they're like, "Oh, this is who we are," and then they just go back into regular old Vikings.
So my opinion on it is I think their dominance is starting to slip away. I think they've hit the top of the roller coaster, are on that downward trend. It was released earlier that Sam Darnold's apparently dating Haley Welch, the Huck Tua girl, or whatever. So maybe she's distracting him in his head, maybe both heads. But
All right,
that's
all
inappropriate.
right.
Alrighty, let's get back to it. So we have the early season dominance with Darnold. We saw it was unprecedented amount of completions he was getting. His performance, his passer rating was unprecedented, and now he's starting to slip a little bit. It seems like. I don't think he. We talked about this earlier too. That when he was on that hot streak, we were like, "Can he keep that up?" And we were both saying, "No, I don't think so." And I think we're starting to see that a little bit. Now, do we get a repeat of the 2016 season with the Vikings? Do you think that's been kind of the trending storyline? Because history does repeat itself, but it is it. Do you think that we see that kind of fall off from this team that was started out so hot?
I think we definitely can. I think the Vikings are very capable of just dropping off. I mean, really, realistically, one or two injuries could, completely tank what they're doing. I mean, if unfortunately Justin goes down, or if Sam Darnold goes down, or if they can't keep a running back healthy, if Aaron Jones actually gets a little bit more hurt than he usually is, maybe their season starts slipping really, really hard. It's kind of hard to say, at least on my side. I guess it'd be a little hard to say if this is going to be their complete, 180 point. Um, but this is a very, very interesting time for them because they got two options. They got either the sink or swim option. So I'm very interested to see what happens. I'd love to see them sink just because it's going to be better for us. But like I said, losing can be a great motivator or it can be a great demoralizer. So we'll see what happens.
Alrighty, and yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think Kevin O'Connell is a good coach. I'm not going to discredit him with that. I think they do have a lot of talent on that team. I just don't think they have the discipline,
I
I
don't think they
guess.
got the winning mindset.
Yeah,
Yeah, they don't have the
the
mindset. They don't have
championship
the
mind
discipline.
culture there yet. With that team, it seems like it's a bunch of guys that are kind of copy and pasted in there and just filling those positions. Yes, they do play really well, but just aren't really meshing together quite yet. So we'll see what happens. But then finally, the Vikings do take on the Titans. Do they get another win here this week?
You already know my answer. Of course, they're gonna beat the Titans. I mean, the Titans
Titans
unfortunately
are
are just
butt
not.
cheeks, dude.
I mean, if we think the Jacksonville Jaguars are it's just not their year, then the Tennessee Titans are. It's just not their 3 years. Right now, they just seem like they're in such a big slump. They're dishing their pieces out everywhere. I mean, they left DeAndre Hopkins. They got some injuries going on. It seems like there's just a whole host of issues going on over there. And I'm not saying like the coaching staff or anything like that when we're talking about other teams, but uh, it seems like they just don't have it right now. And unfortunately, they haven't had it all season. It's really hard to kind of kick it up into high gear on the second half of the season when your first half didn't really show any promise, and then people started leaving. So I think the Vikings are going to end up coming out on top on this one. I'd love to be proven wrong. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be a shootout only for the Vikings, and that the Tennessee Titans are going to end up laying not an egg, but they're not going to end up scoring any touchdowns. So if I were to give you a score prediction, I'm probably going to say that the Vikings are going to throw the ball all over the Tennessee defense. Great run stoppers over there in Tennessee, but their passing defense isn't as great as they'd want it to be, especially when their offense can't keep the ball for longer than a few downs. So I'm going to say they're going to have a high flying, game, and I'm probably going to go with like 34 points, 30 plus points. And then, like I said, Tennessee's not going to end up scoring or a touchdown. The the Minnesota defense is unfortunately quite good, and they're even better at keeping everything, like I said, in front of them. They don't really let the deep ball go very often, and I think that's going to end up really hurting the Tennessee Titans. They're probably only going to end up with, I'm going to say 6 to 9 points. If I'm going to be generous, I'd say 9 points. They're going to kick three of field goals, but the Vikings are going to go out and score 30 plus points.
Yeah, I was going to go a similar direction. I'm not going to deny the facts that the Tennessee Titans are just really bad as a ball squad. I'm going to go
Unfortunately.
30-6 in favor of the Vikings. As much as I wouldn't like to see that, I think we're going to see that, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
now let's move on to the other team. Now we're heading over to our eastern direction and the Detroit Lions. See, we're doing our cardinal directions here on a fantastic week of football. Lions, they find a way to win against the Texans 26-23. Really bad game for another quarterback. Goofy, he was 15 to 30, 240 yards, two touchdowns, five interceptions. Stroud, on the other hand, 19 for 33, 232 yards, one touchdown, two interceptions. Now on the ground, Gibbs, he had 19 carries, 71 yards. Mixon on the other side, 25 carries, 46 yards, and one TD. Now in the receiving game, it was Laporta with three catches, 66 yards, and one TD. And for the Texans, it was Mechie the third, five catches, 74 yards, and one TD. So what was your thoughts on this game? Obviously, a game I thought that actually the Detroit Lions were going to lose. Really did. And the fact that they came out of it was kind of disappointing because I'm like, come on, guys, five interceptions. Like, we got the whole golden sombrero and more. You gotta win that game, and that's just like, oh my goodness. But, anyways, what was your thoughts on this one?
You're not gonna like it because I'm gonna end up tooting the horn of the Lions gameplay. Other than Jared Goff throwing 5 picks, which is just utterly unacceptable, especially with the season he's been having. He's gonna go crazy for the first 9 weeks, and then in week 10 he's just gonna absolutely jump off a cliff and just tank all of his stats. So other than him, they they actually played pretty well. Their wide receivers played pretty well. There wasn't a ton of turnovers in terms of like fumbles or anything like that for the Lions, that is. Um, and they ended up just playing Lions defense, or excuse me, a Lions game. They were ground and pound, trying to run the ball, tinking in, here and there, not doing anything crazy other than Jared Goff throwing 5 picks. But then their defense stepped up and they created some turnovers and they were in the bend don't break mentality and they ended up coming out with a win. So I do agree with you. It was a very, very sloppy game. Every time I looked away from the TV to do something real quick, I'd look back and there was another pick thrown. So it was interesting to see. And I'll tell you what, I started cheering pretty loud when Jared Goff started throwing those picks because I didn't have him in my fantasy team. Um, so he only ended up, I think, scoring like 6 or 7 fantasy points, but it's just not a great game for him. Um, on the other side of the ball, the Houston Texans need to get it together. I mean, this was a game they really needed to win. They won the turnover battle. They didn't win the ground game at all. Like you said, 25 for 56 yards. Is that what it was?
46.
46 yards? 46 yards. I mean, he didn't even get over the half century mark. And he had 25 carries. Like, that's,
Less than
we
2
got to
yards.
be better. Right. I mean, that's crazy. He is better than that. So to see them not utilize him in a way that was getting him out past the line of scrimmage, because really he was getting stuck right as soon as he hit the line of scrimmage. So I think that's really where they faltered. Of course, the 2 picks doesn't help at all. But C.J. Stroud has just not been looking himself. It's
No,
really,
he's hitting a sophomore slump.
he really, and the worst part is it hit him hard. There was nothing but hype coming into the season for him, and even myself was thinking, man, maybe I should grab him on my fantasy. Maybe I should, really pay attention to him. He's a good, he's a good quarterback, and everyone's hyping him up on TV. And then he comes out, and it's just not been a good season for him. Now they still got a good team, and they still got a decent record. So that's not to say that they're bad or anything, but compared to all the hype and compared to what he really could do, it just hasn't been up there on par. So I think the the Houston Texans
The Houston
really just
Texans.
need to lock it in. There you go. They just need to lock it in. I think they've got all the pieces they need. I know they're missing some pieces on offense, but even with that, they were still able to put up some decent amount of points against a team who's got a decent defense. So I think the Lions ended up squeaking away. And again, how do you win throwing 5 picks? I don't know. I don't know if you had watched the Pat McAfee show when Aaron Rodgers went on and he made up a BS stat about winning 7 games or something like that. But even he was shocked. He's like, how do you one lose a game when the quarterback throws 5 interceptions, but two, how do you win a game when you throw 5 picks? So again, not to toot the horn too hard, but they ended up playing pretty well for the really shitty position that Jared Goff ended up putting him in. So I'll say that they ended up playing decent, but we really need to see those Tennessee. Oh my gosh, I keep doing it. That's because we were talking about
Texans.
we really need to see the Texans step up because they got a great team and they really should have won that game.
And what I'm going to say is, we talked about before, Goff hasn't traditionally been as good as he's been playing in the early going of the season and up till basically this point. Is there a switch that has been turned with him as a quarterback? You throw 5 picks, and I believe that was, was that a home game too? I can't remember.
I can't remember either.
It might have been, but 5 picks in one game. Is that going to do anything to the quarterback's mentality? You going to second guess?
I played quarterback when I was really young, so
legend.
I would say yeah. I played a little quarterback in 8th grade, nothing crazy. But yeah, even as a wide receiver, if you drop the ball 2 or 3 times, that's not an easy thing to just recover from. It definitely gets you in your head. And you definitely feel it in the back of your head when you think about it. So it seems like Jared Goff has been in this league for long enough that it really shouldn't bother him. And he's had those games before where he's thrown 5 picks. I think there was only 2 games total, or maybe 3 games that he threw 5 picks, but not many. So he's been there before, and he's recovered from it prior. But you definitely think about it, and especially when you're going to be playing someone decent next week. They have, who do they got next week? They got
Jaguars.
They got the Jaguars. Okay, so
not
they
really
don't
decent. Yeah.
No, so they're not really. I guess that puts a different spin on it. When you have a week after that where the team isn't going to be super great, the game plan probably isn't going to be throwing the ball a ton. You're going to probably want to run it against Jacksonville because you want to save your pieces. So I'm thinking that this isn't going to have too much of an effect on him. Now, if he was coming in and playing Minnesota next week, or if he was playing a really good team like Kansas City or something like that next week, I think it'd weigh on his brain a lot more than it is going to play against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not to say that they're going to run all over him and stomp on him, but compared to some of those other teams, they got a much better chance of doing so.
And yeah, so my opinion is, Goff, obviously, he's been solid as quarterback, but he's playing out of his mind early this season. I think we're going to see more picks coming. I don't think it's going to. I mean, you have to think he's going to be second guessing his decisions now after 5 of them. I mean, you turn the ball over 5 times, at least for a couple games, and I'm really hoping it does happen because the Packers are coming up again, and we'll maybe get an opportunity. We got a couple ball hawks back there, ladies and gentlemen, that can really pick and steal the ball. Yeah, there you go, X, and don't get confused with Des Bryant. But yes, we do have a couple guys back there, and I'm hoping it does kind of mess with them a little bit, just because everybody's been giving Jordan Love so much crap. So you basically you got to the halfway point in one game and 5 picks and whatever, and he's had a couple more on the season, but he's been pretty close to perfect playing wise. So I think we're going to see him kind of not necessarily go down. I'm not saying he's going to have a dramatic drop or anything like that, but we're going to see him come back down to earth a little bit. Icarus got too close to the sun at one point. His wings melted, and he came back down. So I think we're going to see a little bit of that from Goff. But let's talk about their next game. They take on the Jaguars, and we did talk about it a little bit already here with you. Do the Jaguars get an upset here? Because it is in Detroit. I really don't see it happening, but I'm really hoping you say yes, but I really don't see any principle in how it would be.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I'd love to say Jacksonville is just going to pull this one out, I'm not quite sure what the situation is on their quarterback, and I don't know if Mac Jones really has the ability to get them, out of Detroit with a win. With Trevor Lawrence down, it's going to be kind of difficult just from the start, let alone the fact that they're playing a really, really good team at home. Um, yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't really have any faith in the
I'm
Jacksonville
not going to hold my
Jaguars.
breath on this one.
No. I have a feeling that Detroit's gonna end up, doing their thing. And like I said, it's not gonna be a huge passing game. I think they're actually gonna prioritize running it on the ground, being that they want to save some of their pieces, being that they don't want to put him in the position to where he has to make those hard decisions, Jared Goff that is, and throw more picks. I think they're going to want to protect him. They're going to want to protect his mindset. They're going to run the ball quite a bit. They're going to keep that rinky-dink, tipping down the field. I think they're going to maintain that. But I think you're right. I mean, I definitely see him throwing at least one pick just because he's going to have that thought of just double clutching. He's going to
Second guessing.
maybe hesitate, maybe second guess himself a few times. And I could definitely see him coming out with at least one pick, maybe 3 touchdowns. But at the end of the day, I don't see Detroit, even if Jared Goff not at the helm, I still don't see Detroit not coming out with a win on this one.
Isn't that weird to say? Detroit not.
Yeah, I know. I hate to say it. It's like, oh, Detroit's
For
probably
so
not
long,
gonna
it's
get
been, oh, Detroit's going to lose this one.
Yep.
Unfortunately,
completely
no.
opposite. They really have the upper hand this year, and they've been playing phenomenal.
Hey, I'm not giving up on the green and gold, baby.
No, mean it all. I mean, again, we only need to beat them once.
Yep.
And that's in the postseason. So as long as we beat them in the postseason, that's all that really matters.
Yep.
Do I want to beat them during the actual season? Absolutely. I think that'd be great. But it doesn't matter until
We'll
get
get them the
playoffs.
next
So
one. We'll get them the next one.
I think we got plenty of time, but I think Detroit comes out with this one. They're probably going to be a little bit of a lower scoring affair. I don't think they're going to be throwing the ball up and down the field, and I don't think Jacksonville is just going to let them run all over them. I think they got a little bit more pride than that. I think they're going to at least hold them to something. I think they're still going to win, though. So I'm going to say probably 24. I'm going to say 24 to 6 points. Don't see
I was going to go
Jacksonville
pretty
really
similar.
scoring.
24-7, I was going to say.
Perfect. Well, hey, I don't think they're going to score a touchdown. So, I mean, there's your difference right there. I think they're going to get held outside of the red zone the entire time. And if they do touch the red zone, I have a fairly strong feeling they're probably going to mess it up. So, I don't think they score a touchdown. But, hey, maybe they do.
Prove us wrong, Jaguars. Prove us wrong.
Please prove us wrong. Beat the crap out of the
Yeah,
Detroit
do
Lions.
it. Do it.
And
I don't care. We played them already.
Yeah, please. Go
Get
ahead.
tired of the North. Say you're done and you're gonna, go out there and make a statement here. Let's do it. I'm gonna be cheering on Mac Jones, or if Trevor Lawrence is playing, Trevor Lawrence like crazy. Just to, hopefully get that upset in Detroit. But now into NFL news. Just kind of around the league. We're just gonna summarize it real quick. Jets back to sucking again. They lose to the Cardinals. It was, like a flip of a coin there, Carter. But the question is here: is there any way to revive their season at this point? I saw Rodgers saying that it's just playing for pride at this point because he doesn't see any chance. Is there a way to get? I don't think there is. What are they at? 8 losses almost now, 7, something like that, and they're really kind of totaled up, and they still got, I think, the Bills again, and a couple other, obviously really well coached teams, really well played teams, and it'll be interesting to see what the Jets can do. But we talked about it. We had the coin flip last week, and they said they were good, and now they're bad again. So what's
Imagine.
I always go back to seeing that McAfee episode and watching, Devontae Adams come in like they're going to take over the league with Rodgers, and just being like, it's kind of like the Step Brothers when they go into the interview with the tuxedos on, and then is it Pam or is it Pan? Pan or Pam? Pam. Oh, with an MN. Yeah. Or 2 M's or whatever he says.
Yeah.
It just seems like nothing working out there.
No, it's every single week we say it. The Jets are just not. It's not their year either. And unfortunately, all I've been seeing on social media is just that they just don't have anything left. They don't. I don't think any move that they make. I don't think any acquisition that they make. I don't think any changes that they make is going to affect the rest of the season. They could scrap out every single player and get a whole new roster in, and I don't think it's going to affect the way that their season's going. Unfortunately, I think it's just imbued in them at this point that it's just not going to happen. And like you said, when your quarterback is already admitting defeat and saying, "Hey, we're just playing for pride," what does that do to a locker room? All I've seen is that he's just completely ripped the air out of the locker room, and that they just don't have.
But that's kind of what he did when things went south.
Yeah, that.
Except for the one year he did the run the table thing, and that was pretty sick.
Yeah, and we've seen that in the Packers facilities, that we've seen him just be like, "Oh, it's over," and we've still, made a decent season out of it, but we've never been this bad, or at least this down bad, to the sense where like they don't really have too many answers. And they've done everything that they wanted Rodgers to do. They got rid of their head coach. They got a new free agent. They got another new free agent. They got Devontae, and then. What is happening? They haven't done anything with it. And then they go out there to Pittsburgh expecting to have this huge start out win, and mistakes were made. A lot of mistakes were made. Passes were dropped. There was plenty of flags in that game, and they just couldn't put anything together. So it's crazy to me that anyone even thinks that they got a good season or they got something left to save in the season. Just because if you look at the players, they just don't even want to be there anymore.
No, it's deflated bench.
It just seems like they just don't care anymore. And it seems like every time they go out there, Rodgers is looking at the camera like it's The Office going,
giving the gym look, yeah.
Right, and it's like, okay, well, is that really, like if he's in there, he's focused. He's not thinking about who he's going to blame, or like, oh, throwing a fit every single time, someone drops the ball. Like, okay. And I'll be honest, he's missed a lot of balls. He has not been perfect. He hasn't been like 2018, 2017 Aaron Rodgers, where he was hitting everyone on the hand, and if you dropped it, it was completely on you. Now it seems like he's throwing the ball behind people. He's throwing it too high.
He looks old.
Low. It looks like it's almost coming to a time. So me personally, I think that the Jets are done this season. I don't think there's really anything that can save them. Besides a miracle coming down from above, I don't really think anything is really going to change the trajectory of their season.
Well, with the ayahuasca stuff, he might get a miracle out of it. You never know. But
you gotta do a quick dark room retreat. Maybe that'll help.
Maybe it will. You never know.
The whole team in a black room and just say, "Hey guys,
just totally blackout, just complete darkness in the middle of the woods or something." But another news.
Hey guys, we're just gonna black room.
In other news, the Cowboys, they still suck. And McCarthy's kind of on the hot seat. Do you think the Cowboys, now he is pretty good friends with Jerry Jones, do you think the Cowboys get rid of McCarthy before the end of the season, or do you think they wait till the end of the season before they make a move?
I'll be completely honest. I thought they were going to get rid of him last week. I thought last week, like coming into last week, I guess is the best way to put it.
They still have.
I didn't think he was going to have a job last week. I thought he was going to get fired after that bad loss. And then they came into this week and had an even worse loss. And a lot of the people that I've talked to, friends, family, that kind of stuff, even they've been like, man, I don't really know how he has a job. I thought he would have been out of office by now. So I don't really know why they're keeping him along. And I don't know
he's good friends with Jerry. Like that. He's in the family.
That's really got to be the only answer, because he's turned a team that has had so much hype and
such talent too,
and energy and talent and just behind them, that they've had such a good look coming into the year, and then they just tank.
Yeah.
And this year's obviously been much worse than past years, but like this year's just like bad. Like last year, they're like, okay, you know, we lost to the Packers, you know, that sucks, that stings, but they're a good team, and maybe they got away with it, and we didn't have our foot on the gas at all. But now it's like, okay, they can't even make excuses anymore, because they've just been losing left and right to teams that they really shouldn't have. So I think if he doesn't get fired after the next loss, then he's definitely done by the end of the year. I don't think they keep him on for another year. I mean, it'd be a really bad decision on his side. I think Jerry's really got to.
Jerry needs to leave.
I think what Jerry needs to focus on, besides his retirement, it's got to be the sunlight coming through that building, man. They have got to fix that giant window, or start playing games when the sun is not a factor, because no one on that field can see the ball. Anytime they're anywhere in those sun zones, they can't see the ball. I don't know if you've seen the clip of CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, hit him right in the
ball. Ball was right behind him, which, not that it'd be an easy catch, but like he just lobbed it to him. It wasn't like he darted it in there, and that should have been an easy, okay, one step break right in my hand, and they just couldn't see him. So it's like, okay, if the
just get some shades on him.
Throw some shades up there, do something, because you got to blame someone at this point. Jerry's not going to take the blame. Clearly, they're not.
He used to use that home field advantage.
Nope, you don't have it anymore, because now it's a disadvantage. They need to throw some shades up there.
Yeah, put some paint on those windows, something, shades, curtains. But I remember a couple years ago, that was their home field advantage. They won the toss. They would take it a certain direction, or they would, make sure it was a certain direction. And then they would take it, like if it was a noon game, it would be like the second half would be, they would have their backs towards it, or their face, I can't remember, face towards it. But yeah, building a couple $2 billion stadium all to make it east-west is the dumbest thing I think I've ever heard a owner / owner do ever. And it's really kind of a waste of a stadium if you think about it. But I've heard it's tremendously nice, or really nice, and really great place to go. But I don't want to be there.
Bring your sunglasses.
Huh? Yeah.
Bring your sunglasses.
Yeah, bring your sunglasses.
Great experience.
Get the Oakley visors on. We'll see what happens. But that will just about do it, I think, Carter, here today. And we've had another fantastic show here on the Beer, Meat, and Cheese podcast here on WSBN Sports. And we got a lot of fun to look forward to here this weekend as we have the Bears week coming up. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and I want to wish you all the best of luck. Hopefully you're cheering on the Packers. Go, Pack, go. And hopefully you're tuning in to us before the game, getting a little insight, having a little couple laughs, and having some fun with us. But the Beer, Meat, and Cheese podcast, everything you need for your tailgate experience and more. We're also on Spotify as well, along with YouTube. So be sure to check us out on both platforms. But signing off for the podcast here, that's Carter Decker over to my right, and I'm Johnny Sam. Left on the screen. Let's have a great night. Let's have a great week. Let's beat the Bears. You know what they say. That's the Bears. Go, Pack, go.
Pack, go.